Ladies and gentlemen, number one, I appreciate you being on time. And we're going to get started because we have a busy agenda and I know people are coming in. And so what I would like to do first, welcome you to your building. This is the Government Center. This is your building. Taxpayers own this building. I'm James Smudger Mitchell. Thank you also for coming out on a nice Thursday night, but to talk about something that is very important and interesting to all of us. As I see some of my other neighborhood leaders are coming in, what I'd like to do, and I got confidence now, if I give everyone less than 30 seconds, you can introduce yourself, your name, either your company or what neighborhood you represent. Can we do that? If you can do that, I'll make sure not to raise your property taxes, right? Okay? Okay, so let's start with the two young ladies in the back. Your name, either the neighborhood you represent or your company. Please stand.
Valerie Vaughn, Mental Place, Beecham Way Prison. Vanessa Coles, I'm the president of Benton Park HOA.
Sir?
I'm Rory Morales. I represent NARA, National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, I'm Faith Church from Habitat Charlotte Region.
David Smith, Barron Homes.
Hi, Tracy Butler, Executive Officer for the Home Builders Association of Greater Charlotte.
I'm Michael Fest, I'm the chair of the Land Development Committee for the Homeowners Association of Greater Charlotte.
All right. The distinguished young lady with the hat on right there, shaking Reverend Atkinson's hand. Can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Carlenia Ivory Canty, and I'm from Hyde Park, and my husband, who's the president of Hyde Park, is outside, but just found out his son passed.
Thank you.
So you know he would be here this morning.
Yes, that's right. Yes, sir?
Bradford Smith, normally representing the company of landowners here for informational purposes.
Thank you so much, sir. My two rezoning buddies.
Dennis Grills, and I just in the neighborhood off of Providence Road.
Thank you.
I'm Will George. I'm a lawyer here. I've been here for about 10 years. 20 years.
Cool.
Actually. But I represent Providence Springs. Providence Road.
Thank you, sir. Belmont in the house.
My name is Kendra Mason, I'm president of the Belmont Community Association and realtor with ERA Livermore.
Thank you, Kendra.
James Fox here with Crossing Southeast.
Barry James with Crossing Southeast.
Eastland Yard. Mr. McClure.
Steve McClure with the Spectrum Company.
Yeah, my name is Alan Willie Chapman, and I'm from Bearwood Community.
What community? Bearwood, yes, sir. Cliff?
My name is Clifford Walker. I am CEO of Sane Media LLC.
My name is Taj Suri, I am executive vice president of Talent and Partnerships for CMU.
Okay. And so what we're doing, everyone, if you could, less than 30 seconds, your name, either the company you represent or what neighborhood you represent, okay? So the gentleman right here, yes, sir.
Stewart, representing Lincoln Heights.
All right, Lincoln Heights. Okay, and there was two people in the back row. The nice young lady in the black top, yes.
I'm Claudia Gutierrez, I'm representing NARA.
Thank you. The brother with the brim on. Your name?
Arthur Reed.
Thank you, Arthur. Okay. Pastor, start us off at the top.
That's Lee Jackson, the Heights Ministries, the Locust Board, or the president of the Locust Board Council Bill.
Thank you, Pastor. The gentleman with the 100 black man t-shirt, yes, sir.
Darius Payton, I'm so new to this, Charlotte, I can't even tell you what community I'm in.
All right, now we got to give him a real Charlotte welcome. Welcome to Charlotte, brother. Nice. The nice young lady beside you. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Dennis.
Chris Dennis, founder of East Development Corp. I'm representing the Lockwood community.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Eugene Ellington, representing University Park.
All right. And we you know, we call her, okay, let me show, Miss Gasket. I'm sorry, Miss Gasket.
Melissa Gass, the Executive Director for the North
See, that's all I got to say. North Bend is the best. And a very dear friend of mine, he served on my campaign when he was a volunteer coordinator. He got a chance to serve on Charlotte City Council, and he's still doing work now. I call him the good doctor. Introduce yourself, sir.
Hey there, Justin Harlow, local dentist here, former Charlotte City Council member, and currently the co-chair of the Neighborhood Equity and Stabilization Commission for the city.
You'll hear from the good doctor later on. Staff, is okay I leave you all last? Y'all okay? All right. I'm trying to get all the, I saw, what other Eastland, other Crosland? Introduce yourself, young man.
I was a young anymore, and I'm a lot older after Eastland. My name is Tim Stidham. I'm across the southeast, as you heard from my colleagues here. We're happy to be here tonight, and thanks for including us, kids.
Thank you, Tim. My old buddy from, oh my God. Yes.
I was trying high.
I noticed that.
Joe Padilla with Pittsburgh, Oklahoma.
Thanks, Joe. The gentleman beside you.
I'm Michael Fest. I'm the chair of the.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry. Okay, so people walk, oh, okay, see, I see the CEO, D.A. Everett. Come on, stand up. Come on now.
Donovan Everett, president of D.A. Everett Construction Group.
Hey, Donovan, thank you. Donovan was headquarters in Raleigh. He moved his headquarters to Charlotte. And so thank you for being part of our community. Thank you, Donovan. And with a smiling face, please state your name. Stand up, please.
I am Toya Everett. I'm the sister of Donovan Everett with DA Everett.
All right. And that future voter, young man, yes. Thank you. Did I get everybody? Okay, now to the hardest working staff. And I say this because they have to put up with me. And it could be difficult dealing with a very hyper council member who sends them emails 2 o'clock in the morning, and then when they get to work at 7 a.m., I say, hey, we fixed the problem from the email at 2 a.m. But I want to say publicly, I appreciate you all. Thank you for what you do for our community. So I'm going to start off with the director of the CBI program.
Good evening, everyone. Stephen Coker. I'm the Business Inclusion Officer in the Charlotte Business Inclusion Office. We are open for business, and I do look forward to meeting you.
Ms. Rebecca?
Good evening, everyone. Rebecca Heckner. I'm with Housing and Neighborhood Services.
And I got to do this. She know I'm doing this out of love because I'm a proud North Carolina Central graduate. But because she works with me, and I know she goes to that school in Greensboro, the young lady who always holler out Aggie Pride.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Jones, and yes, Aggie Pride.
Dave, the one and only, every third Monday. You know this guy.
Dave Hutton, Financial Zoning Program, the incoming chairman of the planning.
Philip Dutchman, the outgoing vice chair, but class midway.
Last but not least, she would be next on the program, but I'm happy of this young lady. I met her. She invited me to a real estate school event at Mecklenburg Brewery. Did I get that right? Over, 10 years ago? And then she whispered to my ear then, she said, I would like to work for the city of Charlotte. And I really didn't know who she was. And then John Morris started calling me about Allison Craig. And I said, well, I met the young lady. And John started, you got to pay John Morris because he's your big champion. But Allison Craig has gotten rid of the interim, and now she's director of planning. And Allison, thank you for what you do and how you're going to lead our city. Let's give Allison Craig a hand, please. And I see 4 more people. Speaking of John Morris, John, can you introduce yourself, please, and what company you represent?
John Morris with Deacon Partners. It's been great knowing you so much. It's true to hear what you have to say about it.
The young lady right beside John.
Yes, I'm Claire Shealy. I'm also with Beacon Partners.
Thank you. And Crescent, Miss.
I was acknowledging you for Crescent Community.
Okay. And ma'am, in the front, can you introduce yourself and tell us what neighborhood you represent, please?
I'm Joyce Evans, and I represent the towns at Old School Crossing.
Oh. Thank you. And wait a minute, I saw a good friend of mine. Oh, yes, that's right. She's behind Miss Canty. Can you please stand State your name and what community you represent.
Nancy Stroud. I represent Charlotte.
All right, thank you.
District 2, work with Historic West End Partners. So that's
Thank you, Ms. Nancy. And citizens, please come on up. We got plenty of room. Come on down, please. And so thank you all so much for being here. And let me just kind of give you an overview. We're probably going to be here in this room for probably for 20 minutes. Our presentation will focus on area planning, UDO update. We got a new app that our planning department would demonstrate today. I'm excited about that. And then I'm going to come back, talk about this Blue Z you might see in your neighborhoods. And then Rebecca going to talk about the anti-displacement. And then we're going to take you all to room 267, where we're going to have what I call the engagement piece. And we got a great panel that's going to talk about how they view Charlotte from a neighborhood perspective and from a development perspective. And then we're going to be in round tables. And I want us to communicate, to talk to one another, because regardless of your zip code, we live in what city? Charlotte. Oh, come on now. Charlotte. Come on. I didn't raise your taxes. Okay. All right. And so looking forward, and I promise to have you out of here no later than 11 o'clock tonight. So we're going to make sure we stay on. Without further ado, I'm going to invite up the planning director, Ms. Allison Craig. Ms. Craig, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Mitchell. Can you all hear me? All right, well, good evening. I'm going to go over just a little bit about just how the planning department works. And as Councilmember Mitchell said, really focus on community area planning, UDO, and this new app that we just recently launched. So I know many of you know about the UDO and the comprehensive plan. The planning department is also responsible for our historic districts, the Charlotte Development Center, which is the permitting group, our regional transportation, CRTPO, our urban forestry tree canopy, placemaking. So a lot under our hat, but I know we've been focusing a lot lately on the UDO and the comprehensive plan. I wanted to mention really quickly a really important body that we introduced, our incoming chair and our outgoing vice chair, and we didn't mention Ms. Gaston over here is also on the Planning Commission. They serve a really important role, so this is a way in which we really connect the dots between the different agencies. So the Planning Commission advises staff and provides recommendations for City Council on planning items, and they are appointed by the county, by City Council, and by CMS, and so they're really representing the broader Charlotte area and Charlotte interests. And they provide feedback to us, they comment on draft documents, provide feedback on process improvements, and really serve as that important liaison. So I'm really happy that we have that body that really can bridge the gap between the staff work and the different agencies and City Council. So community area planning is the next phase of the planning work that we've been doing. So we adopted the comprehensive plan in 2021. The UDO was adopted in June of last year. And the next important phase of the work that I really want to make sure that you all are aware of is community area planning. And this is really starting to take the vision and the values of the comprehensive plan and apply them to the places that you care about. And so we have 15 different geographies that we've been working in, and we've been going through and doing different workshops in each of these geographies and really starting to talk about what matters to you, what's important, and looking at our future land use, and do we have that future land use map correct as how it's been adopted recently. And then next year, we're really going to start talking about the infrastructure and amenities that are important to you or maybe lacking in your particular areas. I really encourage you to get engaged. This is really an important way for you to start to talk about the places that really mean something to you and provide that community and neighborhood scale perspective to staff. So, and if you have not gotten involved yet, we were very early in the process, so we kicked this off in the winter of this past year, and really right now in the spring and the fall, we're in a series of workshops. And ultimately, over the course of 2 years, we are looking to have these 15 different area plans adopted by City Council by sort of early 2025. So how you can engage, there's a lot of different opportunities. You can join our mailing list. There's a community report. So that kind of outlines, like, these are the areas that we think are most important to your particular community. Read what we found and provide feedback on that. We've got different workbooks that you can review. We've got office hours at local libraries, and online we've got a full toolkit that you can use, particularly if you're a community leader or you want to really involve different stakeholders in your area. You can use this toolkit. It's prepackaged with social media briefings and images and things like that. And if you've missed your workshop in your particular area, we will be coming back around to these geographies again next year, but you can still go online and provide feedback to staff and review all the materials, participate in the exercises, so it's not too late to get involved. I wanted to highlight another great opportunity to get involved in the community. So our 2040 Planning Academy is a great place to learn more about how planning works. Sometimes this can be very technical and confusing, and this is really an opportunity for us to kind of walk you through the planning process. And every year we've had this, we've always had way more applicants than we have spots for. And because we're in such an active phase of community engagement, we're doing this entirely online, and so you can participate for free. Everything's virtual, and even though some of those dates have already passed, so the history of planning and the comprehensive plan and the UDO, those sessions have already happened, they're still available for you to view online. And so it's a really great way to take advantage of the Community 2040 Planning Academy for free and at your own pace and time schedule. And of course, there's a QR code there too to get more information. So I wanted to spend a couple minutes to talk about the UDO. So the UDO went into effect on June the 1st, and this is a major overhaul of a bunch of regulations that have been written at different times over the last 30 years. And so it was adopted last year. It became effective on June the 1st. And on June the 1st, the old zoning districts translated to the new zoning districts if you did not have a conditional zoning or a conditional district. And so this is just a subset of those. I wanted to include the ones that people are probably most familiar with because you're probably living in some of these R3 now N1A or similar zoning districts. But you can go online and see the full translation of all the different zoning districts. And again, we did not translate any of the conditional districts. This is just those that are conventionally zoned. I wanted to talk about some of the things that will be different under the UDO that I think are really important in enhancing and preserving and protecting the character of our communities, and things that we've heard from you all that are important to you in achieving the vision of what we want to see Charlotte look like in the future. We've got some new tools. So we've got a couple different new overlay districts, and people have been really excited about this. This is the way in which you can look at parts of your community that may have certain character elements that you want to preserve and maintain in those particular areas. And so you can talk to us about how these overlay districts work. You're probably familiar with historic districts. We've got a new historic district that I think is probably a little easier to achieve. It's just the first 50% of the structure that's facing the road has to be historic, but you can do whatever you want to do in the last half of your property. We've got some new affordable housing incentives that I'm really excited about. We have one in TOD right now that's been pretty successful. I think we've, through that height bonus, I think we've gotten committed probably near $15 million towards the Housing Trust Fund. The zoning districts now with the UDO that can utilize that height bonus are probably 4 times the land area. So I'm really seeing some great benefits that may be able to go to the Housing Trust Fund. We've got what I'm going to call rezoning by right. I'm sure the attorneys wouldn't like it when I'm calling it that, but it allows you, if you're providing a certain level of affordability, you can move up to the next zoning district and use all of those zoning standards. We've got different reimbursements for sidewalks, street requirement exceptions where that makes sense, and some tree plantings in lieu of mitigation fees, really all trying to encourage people to provide more affordable housing in their developments. We always hear lots about transportation and congestion and how we're moving around, and we've got some new mobility requirements and opportunities in the UDO. And I think one of the ones that I think is most important is that There's a comprehensive transportation review that is now required for projects that are coming through by right or through the rezoning process. And this really starts to talk about moving people instead of moving cars. And so this is really multimodal in focus. So thinking about bus elements, about sidewalks, different ways that we can get people to their preferred destination. We've reduced the traffic impact study threshold. That's something that we hear a lot about too, is like, oh, you know, they didn't have to provide a traffic impact study because they had so many traffic counts. We've actually reduced that threshold. And again, really focusing on moving people and other mobility enhancements like a street requirement for even single building sites and bus stop requirements, including bus stop amenities. We hear a lot about drainage and stormwater. So currently we only review stormwater requirements for your multifamily, subdivision, and commercial projects. We're going to be looking at stormwater for all types of development projects, including additions. We really want to make sure as Charlotte becomes more urban that homeowners and property owners are protected from potential flooding or drainage issues from off-site areas. And so I think this is an important enhancement. Tree canopy and open space, of course, is always very important to Charlotte. The payment in lieu fee will be going up. We'll be able to use that money to plant more trees and provide more canopy and provide canopy care for our large trees in our community. We've increased some of those requirements. Heritage trees are now protected, so our large native trees are protected on all properties, not just in development, but also in your backyards. And we've removed all tree save exemptions. And so in the past, we've had some development that didn't really have to provide tree save, and we really want to make sure that trees are protected in Charlotte. Open space has to be usable, so it's not fragments of your parcel. It's places that you can use and benefit from and enjoy. And then we have a much stronger partnership with Mecklenburg County in terms of making sure we're reserving land and dedicating land for our future parks. So these are a couple websites for you to follow to get more information, to get engaged. So please follow us on Instagram and YouTube, or visit us on those websites. So lastly, we have a new application. Councilmember Mitchell, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to full-on demo it, but I have a QR code, so hold up your phones and scan it, because this is a really cool way in which we're putting all of the development stuff all together. So when you go to the site, you can type in your address or whatever address that you are interested in, and you can see all of the development activity that's occurring around you. So all the different, whether it's residential, commercial, mixed-use projects, if it's a grading permit, a demo permit, building permits, rezonings, and even all of the CIP projects that are proposed or in progress or under construction that the city is providing. So it's really a cool way for you to go and just see really what all is happening in your neighborhood, and I think it's a really important way to empower you with getting information about what's going on. And so when you go to the different projects, you click on it, it'll have a pop-up menu, and it'll give you the status of the project and give you contact information if you want to find out more information and ask the project manager direct questions about it. So great way to arm yourself with more information to understand what is happening in your communities. And with that, I think that's all I got.
When do you think that app will be live?
It's live. It should be. Yeah, it's live right now. Yeah, I think we just sent out the press release yesterday for that. So it is hot off the press. Okay, yeah. All right, I'm going to turn things over to Rebecca Hefner with Housing and Neighborhood Services.
Good evening, everyone. Let's see. Do I need to do something to get it going up here? Excellent, thank you. So, important question, how many people in this room are concerned about displacement? Okay, so now I know who's not listening, because every single hand should go up, right? There's an issue in our community We at the city are concerned about it, think about it a lot. Your council members are concerned and working on it. And you have an entire commission of Charlotte residents who have gathered for a year and a half now, and they have a year and a half to go also, and who have been working hard on this issue. So I'm going to share just briefly tonight some of the things that we at the city and the Nest Commission have been working on. So the Nest Commission, this stands for Neighborhood Equity and Stabilization Commission, is a commission that was created after the adoption of the comprehensive plan. And the commission's charge is really around reviewing and recommending anti-displacement tools and strategies. So your commission members, you've got two of them in the room today. Dr. Harlow, who is one of the co-chairs, along with Kim Graham and Melissa Gaston, who's also not just a planning commission member, but also an Nest Commission member. So she's double commissioned, maybe even more. And one of the things that the Nest Commission has been working on is the development of an anti-displacement strategy for the city of Charlotte. So this strategy the draft is recently completed and shared with the City Council's Housing, Safety, and Community Committee. And it's really built around 4 goals: supporting residents, strengthening communities, foster inclusivity, and empowering businesses. Now, I will say empowering businesses is great out here, not because it's not important, but because we're doing this work in phases and we've only got through the first 3 goals so far. Goal 1 is all about supporting residents. So enhancing household stability for both individual residents within the household and at the neighborhood level. So the city has a lot of existing programs for affordable housing. Some of them focus specifically on anti-displacement. And this strategy really outlines how those can all work together to really support residents. So with increasing access to services that support housing stability, or promoting home ownership, or other programs and activities that help stabilize residents. But it's not just enough to help individual households and support housing stability. It's also, we really want to think about how we're strengthening communities. And so this strategy provides a lot of tools that really build and preserve social capital and help neighborhoods and communities come together and advocate for their own needs. We want to hear from you. Allison shared with you all of the different ways that you can get involved in the community area planning process. One of the things that we really want to provide tools for is for neighborhoods to come together and talk about what's your neighborhood like, how do you want it to grow, and what are the tools that you want to put in place to help your neighbors and yourself stay there as your neighborhood grows and changes. So this goal of strengthening community is really about building that neighborhood capacity and supporting residents in even in things like community ownership, so community land trusts or cooperative housing. The third goal is around fostering inclusivity, and this is around trust and transparency and diversity in decision-making. So thinking about recommendations about how the city makes decisions related to affordable housing, how we create forums to hear from you about your concerns, and also how we identify more sustainable funding sources for these programs and activities. So I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the activities that we currently have in progress related to this strategy. Your city council has advanced investments in supporting residents through the recent adoption of the FY 2024 budget. So investments in emergency rental assistance, legal services, eviction prevention, housing recruitment and retention for landlords, and then also launching the tax relief program in partnership with Mecklenburg County, the HOMES program. Your city council allocated $4.2 million to support tax relief for residents in this really difficult market. But I will remind you, as Councilmember Mitchell said, there was not actually an increase in your tax rate. Around strengthening communities, we have several opportunities right now for you and your neighborhood and communities to come together and work on anti-displacement planning. We have a board retreat coming up in July, on July 15th. Anybody planning to attend the board retreat? Excellent, thank you. And anyone has done that in the past? Awesome, okay. So one of the opportunities at the board retreat will be to actually sit down and work with your neighbors and our staff on anti-displacement planning and identifying priority strategies for your community. And then under goal 3, we're working really hard right now. In fact, Yolanda Jones, who has snuck out, but you met her earlier. She's working in partnership with some of the outreach staff in Housing and Neighborhood Services and our communications folks around putting together an online resource hub for residents who are facing displacement pressure. Because we do have resources that are available, but when they're difficult to find and they're hard to access and challenging to apply for, then they are not as useful as they could be. So we're working hard on that as well. And the last piece of advancing the strategy is your NEST Commission members will be bringing forward in August to the Housing, Safety, and Community Committee a set of recommendations about programs and potential investments that the City Council could consider related to expanding or creating new programs and services that support anti-displacement. So we are working actively to advance this strategy, but we cannot do it alone. We want to hear from you about what your needs are, and we look forward to working with your neighborhoods to create a tailored plan that we can work together to activate on and help you and your neighbors stay in place as our city grows. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Rebecca. And so this is what I would like to do, a couple of housekeeping. Number one, don't worry about taking notes. If you sign in, we're going to email all the presentations to you later on this evening, okay? That's number one. Number two, as we leave here and go to room 267, I need you to do me a favor. Find someone here you do not know. And as you walk into 267, introduce yourself to that person, get to know that person, because one thing about town hall meetings is very important is we know people in Charlotte. So can you do that for me? Well, I need to pair y'all off like we do in school. 1, 2, 3, all groups 1. So can we do that? Okay. So staff, can you put up, there it is. So I'm gonna be very quick because I know we want to be upstairs about 6:35. So here's what I'm gonna do about this blue Z. What does the blue Z represent? Rezoning. And so when you see the blue Z, something is about to happen in your community. It is up to, where are my neighborhood presidents? Raise your hand, my neighborhood presidents. I got 1, I got 2, 3, 4. Thank you. Neighborhood presidents, it is your responsibility to try to gather much information you can about that blue Z. I think what's helpful if we can inform and educate our residents what's about to occur, as opposed to, we know how the rumor mill start. They about to build a garage beside my expensive home, and I don't like it. And so I'm gonna help you, neighborhood presidents. Write down this number. Let me know when you're ready. 704-617-0399. If you have any question about the blue Z, you call your city council member, and I will help you to make sure we're informing the residents what is about to occur near their community. Okay, we ready to go to room 267? Any questions? All right, you got your homework assignment, right? What you gonna do? Network. New, meet somebody new. There you go, meet someone new. Let's all go to 267. You did? Okay, everyone completed the homework assignment. So what is about to occur, doing two things real quick. Ms. Craig is going to lead us, and we have a great panel discussion with these leaders up here who work tirelessly to try to make Charlotte a better place. You have a combination of developers, neighborhood leaders, a chair of Inez, a developer who's been doing work in the corridor, a developer is doing work River District, Eastland, a neighborhood leader who works hard in Camp North End. So we're going to have, I think Allison got about 10 tough questions for them, really tough. And so they will answer those, and then after about 15 to 20 minutes, you're at a table for a reason. We're going to talk collectively at your table. How do we make Charlotte a better place? Neighbors and developers working together. Okay, so Allison, take it away with the panel discussion.
All right, thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay. So I think we all know, and we're all here today just to talk about, the future of Charlotte, what things look like, what concerns you, what excites you. And I think this is a really interesting panel that Councilmember Mitchell put together, really talking about what's important to the community, what's important to the development industry, and how we can really work together on making sure we're all happy and excited and proud of how Charlotte evolves over time. So I've got a few questions to ask the panel. And so the first thing I'm going to start off with, I'm going to pick on Tim.
All right, join the crowd.
So tell me, Tim, what concerns you most about growth coming to Charlotte?
Can you all hear me?
I think all of y'all are all live.
Great question. I guess I'd start there by saying, aren't we fortunate to be living in Charlotte? I've got friends and business colleagues in other cities up in the north. They don't have any of the growth that we have. They have problems that far exceed ours. And so growth, generally speaking, is a good thing, and it creates opportunities and provides lots of advantages to us as a community. But along with that growth comes some of the challenges. And I spend half my time doing affordable housing development, which is a nonprofit part of our business. Affordable housing is really difficult to develop, and very rewarding when you are able to do it. But one of my biggest concerns is the affordability crisis. Median home prices have gone up. I'm citing statistics from Dr. Chu at the UNCC Real Estate School, but he would say that median home prices have increased 54% in the last 2 or 3 years. The median home price is now well over $400,000. I'm looking at the statistic, 80% of our residents can't afford the median home price. 80% of our residents can't afford the median home price. That's not sustainable when you have, so many people that are coming in. They want home ownership and they don't have access to it. And Allison, I think the world of our planning director. Charlotte's fortunate to have Allison Craig. But sometimes we disagree on some issues. The regulatory burden that's added by the Unified Development Ordinance, although there's a lot of good things in there, there's also increased costs there. So there's a trade-off when you have wider sidewalks and more tree save and preservation of heritage trees and more electric vehicle parking and larger tree buffers. Those are all good things. Until you start seeing the impacts, you get less land yield, so you build fewer houses on a site, and the result of all that is the costs go up, and in some cases materially. And so the additional, it's a long answer to a short question, but the regulatory burdens and their impact on affordability is a concern of mine.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Melissa, what about you? What concerns you about the growth coming to Charlotte?
So as a community leader, I'm also a real estate agent. I see a whole lot of people moving here who can afford to live here because they're moving from other areas that are high cost. But we have a whole lot of people who are natives or have been here a long time, and they can't afford to buy a place. They can't afford to to continue to rent where they're renting because the rents are going up. So I think for me, it's a combination. There's the good and the bad, and you have to outweigh the good and the bad and work together and make it so it's inclusive so everybody can stay there. So I love being on the Nest Commission so that I can talk about the different ways that we can continue to keep the same community, because the fabric of our communities is what makes them all special wherever they are. And when they change, our new people are coming in, that's fine, come in, but don't necessarily.
Bates Road is strong because the people who live and work there, and those are strong communities. And I think as developers, again, I'm a developer that wears a community hat, and as a developer coming in, my first initiative, how do I listen to the community? How do I go in and create handshakes versus handouts? How do I find people that are looking for opportunities that we can do the things that, like I said, we stand on is up mobility and educating. I just want to just not to jump off, but in the room, we talk about Bates Road and South, and we're seeing the developments and the opportunities it's bringing with the small business engagement we're seeing. But in the room, I want to show you what up mobility looks like. There's a guy named Bo Jackson sitting here. Bo Jackson was part of the transit population in the Washington Heights community, but Bo was doing a service of cutting yards. And I saw how excellent Bo was doing that. And so we ended up taking Bo and said, hey, Bo, cut our yards and then take care of our Batesford Road commercial projects. So when you ride past Batesford Road and you say, well, it's well kept, or there's no trash. The gentleman that's doing that is in this room, and he was a transient, and now he's currently housed and he's employed by a corporate company. So just take a second and give a guy like Bo a hand of applause. I like to give people their roses, and just saying thank you both for all you've done, because again, you've not only been the example, but you've been the heartbeat of that development, and you've made sure every day with all the calls to make sure things was kept nice and neat. So I'm excited about the work that we're doing, but it hasn't been easy. But I'll tell you, it's been a public-private partnership, and again, trying to make progress to move forward and trying to get it right. There's always challenges in trying to get it right, and the key thing is communication and understanding that there are differences, but how do we overcome them? I always tell people there isn't a problem when there's a solution. So I'm always looking for the solution, and I think we're working towards that, and I think that's what everyone in this room is looking forward to. And thank you so much, Councilman Mitchell, for all of your help you've given, and the staff.
Thank you. You've really done some great work in that area. So, you know, like you wear a developer hat and a community hat. Elizabeth wears a developer hat, but she's also served on the Planning Commission for a number of years, and so sees things from some different perspectives. So, Elizabeth, what do you wish the community better understood about the development industry, or what do you wish the development industry better understood about the community? Whichever one you want to take.
Well, thanks for having me, Councilman Mitchell. I appreciate the invitation to be here and to speak to all of y'all. It's good to see so many familiar faces. Yes, I've been able to wear different hats, serving as a developer for Crescent for the past 20 years, mainly in the Charlotte area, and done lots of projects here, but also spent six years on the Planning Commission, so got to see it from that perspective. I think sometimes it's very interesting working with the community. And I'd like for them to better understand that most of the people that are here that are developers in the room also live in Charlotte, and they also want to see that it be a better place and want to do all the good things that the community wants to see. They might sometimes come to it from a different perspective, but I think that the end goals are, can be aligned. And I think sometimes it just takes a while to find a common place, and I think it takes time to find the right person and have the conversation and figure out where they're coming from to better understand to kind of reach those common goals. But I think it just takes time to do that. And I've had the benefit of developing a project in my neighborhood, so not only have I lived there, but had to work with our neighbors to figure out the best solution for the project. And so it's been an interesting project. But I think if the community could understand where we're coming from, but then also we need to spend the time to see where they're coming from too.
Thank you. So I'm going to pose this question to any of y'all to answer. What do you think we should do differently to help us work together as a community to plan for Charlotte's future?
Who's going to tackle that one?
I'll put a stab at it.
Thank you.
I think the first thing we do is an important thing that I think that sometimes we take for granted, and that's listening. stepping back and listening and trying to understand the different perspectives. I know when I talk about development, again, my background was a community leader as well, and I was in banking for a number of years and came through the military. And one of the key things I've learned over the years is that listening is the key thing that will drive people together or tear them apart. And I think that in many instances, we will create a narrative and we'll make that narrative the reality for a community or a person when we don't know that person or have not even tried to understand their perspective. So I think that as we try to bring Charlotte into the great city we want it to be, I think we should all take the opportunity to shake a hand and just listen and have that true conversation. And that may change not only your life, but the lives that are around you, and you'll find out that a community means a lot more.
Just to piggyback a little bit, I think that, and many of you most of you got voluntold to introduce yourself at the beginning of the meeting today, and it's good to hear as we've got so many people in here from various parts of the city, right? And lots from West End, North End, East Side resident, I heard Bearwick, so Steel Creek's represented. This city is so vibrant. And if I could challenge all of you with one thing today about, hey, what could we be doing better? You all came here because you value, the work that's being done in your communities. You are committed to representing your areas or your corporations and helping, Charlotte meet all of its potential, even if you're not from here. And so I challenge all of you to, go back to whether it's your coworkers, your neighbors, your family, and inform them. So often, right, we're caught in whether we see the Blue Z sign, right, or something else just ends up happening, or we got that, that tax assessment notice and no one knew that was happening, right, and if they weren't paying attention, and then it becomes this is being done to me feeling, right, rather, this wasn't done with me or for me type of thing. I'm sure we all have neighbors or friends that feel that way or have said something of that nature about some form of development or something happening that came down from some decision made in this building. So I challenge you to go back to them and say, hey, sign up on this app. Right? Be notified when things are going on. Join these various listservs. They don't have to come to everything, but encourage them to participate. I think with the community, with the city staff or its developers, there's a variety of ways to tap in. There's a variety of ways to be notified and participate and have your voice heard. The community area planning stuff is all happening right now as we speak, and will happen over many months in the upcoming years. And so how residents can help shape their own communities and participate in neighborhood board retreats, joining neighborhood associations and community development groups. That's that first step. Almost all of us have been there if we're coming from the neighborhood side of things, and you learn about how the city functions, how development happens, how the rezoning process works, how the planning got started years before that Blue Z showed up on your street. And then there's a public hearing, right, for many of those rezonings and other development happening. So share that info, pass that along, start group chats in your neighborhood, and then invite more people out to events like this.
Yep. Allison, can I jump in on that? I, of course, agree with all of that was said. I think even events like this where you can build bridges. The Unified Development Ordinance process was a lengthy process. The city was leading that, and there were a lot of people that participated. Members of our team and myself were involved as well. And I had the opportunity and the honor, frankly, to meet community leaders through that process that I now call friends. I didn't know them before. I won't say his name, but there was one gentleman that was, I would say, in opposition to us. We were doing an affordable housing development deal, and we had a neighborhood meeting, and I got an earful from this gentleman, and I wasn't too happy about it. It was an affordable housing deal. We're not making any money, and he was giving me a hard time. But I got a chance to meet him in a different venue, and now, I mean, we're friends. He's a great guy, and being able to build bridges like that is such a treat. So somehow, some way, if you can host more of these types of meetings. One other thing I'll say is a lot of times neighbors come to those neighborhood meetings, or now a lot of them are on Zoom. Like the good doctor says, they start with the premise that I'm getting screwed and you're screwing me, right? that's not a helpful starting point. And so, especially, for example, if you've got a site that's already zoned, so you're going through the process, the project is probably going to happen. I'd encourage you to start with maybe the perspective of help me understand what you're doing, and then may I share with you my concerns about what you're doing. And I see in the room a handful of friends of mine. Charlotte is so blessed to have developers. I like how Chris said it. I wrote it down. I'm a developer that wears a community hat. There's a handful of developers in this room that all would say the very same thing. And I've worked in many other cities, and Charlotte is uniquely blessed, I think, because of the talent and the community mindset that a lot of these developers have. And I find them to be quite reasonable. So if neighbors have concerns, we want to hear about it. And if we can solve those problems, we're going to do it. I mean, that's exactly what we want to do. So I just encourage the neighborhood leaders in the room, to build that rapport as we want to do with you. And I think the more we know each other, the better off we'll be going forward.
Thank you. I've got 2 more questions, and I'm going to ask all of y'all to answer them. We'll start with your bonus question first. So 2 or 4 year terms for council. We'll start with Elizabeth.
Wow.
This has been recorded.
Oh, goodness. I get to go first?
You get to go first.
I would support a 4-year term.
I want to say why. I would support a 4-year term because I think that when we start doing, when there's work being done, in a 2-year term, you see it and you start it and you get the movement. But the challenge of it, I think, is being able to finish it. And I think you have good people in good positions, but give them the opportunity to not only start something, but see it through so there becomes that accountability factor.
All right, good doctor.
I can speak more freely on
I'm
this.
going to slide sideways.
No, so I do support 4-year terms with a caveat. With term limits, our longtime council member probably won't like that, but, well, you left and came back, so then the term limits start over. But, and staggered terms. I actually believe that the way that the school board does staggered terms, the at-large and the district reps don't run at the same time, which means you never, ever get a full turnover in your elected official bodies. I think there's some benefit there. We can talk about full-time or part-time. That wasn't part of the question, but 4 years staggered terms is what I would support. Yeah.
I would agree with the 4-year terms as well as the staggered, because when you have that turnover all at the same time, if you haven't already been on the board, then you have a whole new slew of information you have to learn. And if you only have a 2-year term, you don't have enough time to learn what you need to know. So that gives you that learning curve. So 4 years is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, I'd like to pick which council members only get 2 years.
That was the answer. I think that was the answer, Sam. You win.
Generally speaking, I support 4-year terms also, and I like the staggered term concept too. And I'll tell you why. A lot of the council members, are coming in, from other businesses, dentistry or whatever their background is, and they're forced and faced with tackling incredibly complex issues. Take affordable housing as one. That issue is so difficult, and council is making decisions on tens of millions of dollars, and it takes them 2 or 3 years just to learn what they're making the decisions on. And if on 2-year terms, by the time literally that they're just starting to figure out what the words mean, they're running for re-election. And so I would support 4-year terms also, and I would support term limits as well. I think there has to be some reasonable limit there also.
Yeah, I mean, there really is an incredible learning curve for you all, so I could see that making sense. So last question before we turn it over so we can actually have conversations. We've talked about listening and communication and the importance of events like this and getting together, so we want to make sure we have time for that. So if you each could just give the group a charge, like, this is what you should do going forward, or this is the important conversation I think you should be having. Talk to the room. So, like, What should they be doing, thinking about, or talking about? Anybody can go.
So this, I'll go first with that question. I think the one thing you need to do is you need to be involved and participate. Even if you can't come to all the meetings, and we can't come to all the meetings, but they're online afterward, you can look at them or you can see the presentation. Get involved, don't be afraid to share your ideas and input, and get to know the people in your community as well as the developers who are coming into your community. Before I got on the planning commission, I always saw that sign. I knew the planning staff. I was calling them on the phone, hey, I got a question, or where to go look. So you need to be involved and don't be afraid. They put their pants on just like you do.
I'll go next. Yeah, I think it takes a long time to always build relationships, and so I think you have to start that early to get what you want down the road. So just encourage everybody to continue to come to things like this. And I've always found that it's, what you put into something, the more you get out of it. So I think if you can come to things more often, even if you can't come always, I think when you do what you can, you're always going to get something out of it and meet somebody new. Like I met tonight a couple of people. Thanks for encouraging me to do that. You never know who you might meet and what you might be able to do with them down the road.
Join a volunteer citizen board or advisory committee. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Tim, would you like to sign up?
The city and the county commission and the city council appoint to a variety of citizen advisory boards, sometimes called boards and commissions. The Nest Commission is one of them. We have 2 vacancies on the Nest Commission. And I'd like to acknowledge one of our Nest commissioners over here, Marta Tejate, right there. Thank you for joining us today. But these boards and commissions report to the elected bodies at various intervals. Nest reports quarterly to the Housing Safety and, what do they call this committee now? Housing Safety. We change the name every year. Housing Safety and Community Committee, once a quarter. But there's transit advisory committees, there's business advisory committees. When you want to be there and help shape the forefront of various city initiatives, city program recommendations, city policy recommendations, to the elected officials, that's a great way to start without having to have the accountability of being the elected official. And that's another way to tap in. The requirements are not that much. Most of the time, the commitments are, meeting once a month, maybe once every other month. A lot of those meetings are happening virtually at this point. They feed you, which is good, though it's unpaid. But it's if you're looking for more ways to tap in, and with a small little bit of extra time capacity, that's one great way to do it. I am certain that there are dozens of vacancies. If you go to the city clerk's website, you can find those vacancies there, and I think that's a great way for a lot of people to help participate in ways and you can choose which ones you want to. You can apply to multiple commissions at the same time, and then the city council appoints once a month to those boards and commissions.
I'll add by saying that I think one of the key things for me is talking about legacy. I'm big about legacy and history, and I think that we all should play a part in, as we look at shaping Charlotte, our succession plans and what do we do in our communities by creating tables. We know there's a lot of tables that exist, and there are a lot of people who don't sit at those tables. And I think that when we're at those tables, it's our right to make sure we pull people who aren't at the table to the table or into that conversation. And on that same note, I think that one of the things I'll charge everyone in this room, hold our city council members accountable. I mean, I think that if we can't call them and ask them the questions that we need to ask and hold them accountable for the change that we need, I think that's an issue. So I say hold them accountable and in fact check them and put them on the stand and say, look, where do we stand with this? And what are you doing for these areas? Or what issues do we have and how do we solve them? Because I think that's where you'll find out, how our city is going to grow is through the support and the advocacy and the people that we vote for and all the ideas that they bring to the table. So like we talked to Council, Paulo just talked about with the different ways to look at the terms. Those are great ideas. How do we get those engaged and how do we hold them accountable for the things he's put in place? And also say to Mr. Mitchell, if you tell me you support Baysville Road, pick the phone up when I call. Those are the things that are important and how we get things done. So hold our councilmen accountable for moving our communities forward and how we engage in public and private partnerships.
I guess I'd add to what the other participants had said. If you're a minority business owner and you hear about a development that you're interested in, call. I've heard so many times, it's hard for minority-owned businesses to get hired by Carlson Southeast or by Beacon Properties or by Spectrum or whatever. The challenge is we want to hire minority-owned businesses, and we may not know you. So now it has to make sense. If you're a landscaper with one lawnmower, it wouldn't make sense to call to talk about doing work at Eastland Yards because it's an 80-acre site, and the size needs to align. But don't assume we're not interested in engaging in MWSBE. We really desperately want to do that. And no offense, but the city's database is almost useless. We go in there and try to find, okay, what's the where can we find the best minority-owned concrete guys, and we find fence companies and we find hair salons and whatever, and sorry, but that's not what we're looking for. I mean, it's not very user-friendly, and so we'd love to hear from you guys, and if you know friends and others that are business owners, share that news as well.
All right, well, I will turn it over to Councilmember Mitchell to close the panel out.
Let's give our panelists a hand, please. So if you could take a seat at one of the tables there. So I want you all to be part of roundtable discussion. And I'm going to practice some democracy. So you all going to make a decision on what we can do next. I love to eat, so I'll be the first one to tell you I'm hungry right now. But we have our roundtable exercise to do. So show of hands, can we go get the food? We got option A. Go get the food, come back to your table and have your conversation. Option B, have your conversation for 30 minutes, then go get the food. Okay? All those in favor of option A, raise your hand. You got to raise them high. Help me count. Oh, okay. Option B?
A's have it.
A's have it. All right. Ladies first, please. Go get your food right across the hall. Bring it back in and have your conversation at the round table, okay? All right.